The constraints-led approach is looking at all of the factors that potentially play a role within a coaching environment and being able to identify those so that we can create environments that promote skill development. It looks a little different to how we might traditionally coach, but it is recognizing that there are constraints in the environment, in the task, and who we are as individuals. And we're using those to leverage how we design coaching environments to promote different skills. The biggest difference with a constraints-led approach compared to a kind of traditional approach to coaching is that we spend a lot more time recognizing that there are other factors involved than just the person in front of us. And fundamentally, we recognize that that person is influenced by their environment. A constraint is just anything that shapes our behavior. We have different types of constraints, and it kind of boiled down to individual task and environment constraints. Individual constraints are kind of the things that make us people, the things that make us experience the world differently. I always use height as an example. We move into sort of task constraints then. We're sort of thinking about the things that we as individuals interact with. That task is usually set by somebody else, and then those task constraints are dictated by what is happening in that particular task. So we often use instructions as a really great example of what task constraints are. Me telling you what the activity is right now is probably going to shape the way that you do that particular activity. When we have rules or guidelines or boundaries, and then more broadly, you have your environment. You have whether or not it's raining outside or whether it's a beautiful sunny day. So those environmental constraints really shape what we're capable of doing as well. The purpose behind a constraints-led approach is essentially allowing people to discover their movement solutions in a way that actually still helps them solve the problem on game day. Realistically, every time we try to move in a particular sport, we have movement problems that we're trying to solve. So we want to encourage people to explore movement solutions to those particular problems. So when we try to help someone to find a solution, we're essentially talking about the environment that we're creating as a coach. And we can do that through the task designs that we use or the physical environment that we're kind of creating as well. The role of a coach in the constraints-led approach is something I like to use as a gardener. So a quote that I often share with people is by Stanley McChrystal, and it's that a gardener can actually grow tomatoes. They can only foster in an environment in which they do grow. And so realistically, we're shifting away from someone who is the provider of information and therefore the person who has all of the knowledge and information. And we're actually making sure that that information is available for everybody in the way that we design our tasks and environments. I find that a good time to know when to apply a constraints-led approach is when learning starts to plateau. I find that's a really great time to be like, okay, well, if I'm making the same mistake with the same information, what if I change the information? What if I actually expand what I think I can do because I'm now in a bigger task or a bigger environment that asks me to do different things? I find it's really difficult to have concrete plans, but there are principles that I like to follow. One of the things that I like to know as a coach using a constraints-led approach is, what are my constraints? And this doesn't have to be an exhaustive list to start. I actually find that if I run into something or I notice something for the first time at training, I'll just keep this list that continues to grow of like constraints that I've noticed that are happening. It's just, what are the performer, task, and environment things that I need to know that I could potentially use to design a session? We can set up scenarios in particular to draw people's attention to information sources and how to use them. We often talk about amplifying particular ways. So as a coach, I might be the one who's bowling the ball and I can choose which length it's going to be. And your two common responses to that are, if it's short, I probably want to play in this position, or if it's full, I want to play in this position. So I would then amplify those options to make sure that picking the right one, or at least the most functional one in that particular moment, is rewarded. I think for a brand new coach, the most important thing about a constraints-led approach is it's actually not that different to what we would normally do. It probably just opens up what you can do as a coach a bit more. I would want a coach in that position to know that the game is a really great teacher, but it can't be taught alone. You are the teacher that works alongside the game.